This is the Triumph Rocket 3 R Storm. Ooh, and it almost fell over. This is one of the biggest, baddest, most monstrous motorcycles on the market, and today we're going to give it a full review. Now, if you want a motorcycle that makes a statement, I don't think there's any bike out there that makes more of a statement than this. It's certainly a bike that will win every game of top trumps possible, because this is one of the biggest, most brutal motorcycles on the market. It's got a huge engine, 2.5 litres, and the torque this motorcycle produces is unparalleled.
Bye bye.
Bye, have a good day.
Have a good life.
Thank you. This is a bike for big people, and I am a big people, and I'm 6'2" and a bit, and this is what I look like on the bike. It is a monster, and it's heavy, although it doesn't feel heavy when you're riding it. It takes its weight very well, and the riding position is very nice. There's a nice reach for the handlebars, and my feet are in a nice position. You can of course get the GT version with the pegs that are about there, which is good for long distances.
Now, it produces 225 newton meters of torque at 4,000 RPM and 180 horsepower at 7,000. So this is the torquiest production motorcycle you can buy, and it certainly feels that way. It is tremendous, the amount of torque this bike has. It really is a monster. And even at 1.5, 2,000 RPM, this thing pulls and it keeps on pulling. I've never seen a bike like it. It's unbelievable. Even in rain mode, it feels fast. And you put it in sport, it's so ridiculously fast that it makes you feel sick. I mean, doing 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, which is absolutely insane, especially for a bike of this size, because normally bikes that go that fast are sports bikes or naked bikes, which are a lot smaller and a lot lighter.
If you're new to the channel, I just want to point out that before we make the review videos, we go off for our test ride and we don't film that part. So we ride the bike through the towns, in the countryside, in the country lanes, dual carriageways, motorways, all sorts of different riding. So we get a very good impression of the bike before we come back and talk to you about it. Very occasionally someone will make a comment saying, oh, you've only ridden it down the road, because obviously they're looking at the bit we filmed, but there's a lot of riding going before we do that part.
Now, this Storm edition of the Rocket 3 is very blacked out. It's super menacing, but it has got a few sort of metal features like this stripe down the middle. So I thought my chrome quad lock phone mount goes quite well on these black bars, because it gives it a nice contrast, and the vibration damper on top so I don't ruin my phone camera. But if you're interested in getting a phone mount, these are the ones to buy. They're the best on the market. So click the link in the description to check them out.
Church, just waiting for the bells. Lovely, isn't it? I love that atmosphere you get with the church bells in an old town. Beautiful. We're in Stamford, by the way. Now, when you're riding this bike, you've got a very good view of the road ahead, because it dips down quite steeply and there's nothing much here. So you do have a commanding riding position of where you're riding.
Nice bikes.
Thank you. Aren't you cold?
Pardon?
Aren't you cold?
I'm boiling.
Oh, really? Gosh, I'm freezing. Now you've got the bar end mirrors on this, and the visibility behind is very good. I can see pretty much all of the road behind me, which is very important.
Riding this motorcycle is nothing but sensational. Every experience you have on this bike is out of this world. The acceleration is unbelievable. The handling is very good. Triumphs tend to have quite sporty geometry in the steering, so it carves up the corners better than you might imagine, but it's also extremely stable at high speed. So this is a great bike for cornering and for stability on the motorway. If you were coming from something like a Harley Davidson, you wanted something a bit faster, but you don't like the look of a sports bike or the sound or feel of a sports bike, then this is a good option, because it gives you that sort of cruiser riding position, but this is very much a muscle bike. I would not call this a cruiser. This is the Chevrolet Camaro of the motorcycle world. It's a big hunk of metal with oodles of torque and power, but it's not a light sports bike like a Ducati. It's like comparing a Chevy Camaro to a Ferrari. This is the muscle bike. Now this Rocket 3 is often compared to the Ducati Diavel V4 because that's also a muscle bike, and I did actually review that bike a few months ago, so go and check out that video if you haven't already seen it. But I would definitely choose this over the Ducati. The Ducati is lightning fast. It's also got a quick shifter. I think that was an option, but the one I rode had that. So you can pin it open and shift up through the gears. The stopping power is incredible. It handled very well, but it didn't have anywhere near the amount of character this motorcycle has. So this has the speed, the looks, and the character, and the Ducati sort of had the speed, not so much had the looks, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of the way it looks. It is like an insect that's come out of a science lab after they've experimented on it with lots of steroids. Whereas this is also like it's come out of a science lab, but I think the lines of this bike are much more smooth and rounded. It's got a more of a cool look about it, in my opinion. Now, another point, if you want to make a statement, this is one of the best bikes you can do it on because, oh, I've just opened the petrol cap without meaning to. It's an absolute head turner of a motorcycle. I've never ridden a bike like this, that everywhere you go people stop and look at you as you go past. While we've been stood here, multiple people have gone past and remarked on how cool it is, especially schoolboys. They go, "Oh, that is a cool bike." So it's something that people lust after, and it's something that people stand back and go, "My God, that is cool." So if you want cool factor, I think this certainly has got that.
Now, did you know that subscribing to this channel will give you 20 miles per hour more on your motorcycle just by pressing that button? Go and try it, it's unbelievable.
The stopping power is also excellent. You've got double discs on the front and single on the rear. These are Brembo brakes, so you can stop even quicker than you can accelerate. It's absolutely phenomenal. The sound of this bike is actually pretty good for a standard exhaust. You've obviously got 3 exhaust pipes because it's a 3-cylinder engine. They do look quite cool, but I think I would prefer a slightly more minimalist exhaust system with less going on, and perhaps if it came out a little bit further, I think that would look better. But obviously they've done that so that you can see this rear wheel, because you've only got a single-sided swing arm. But it's got some nice sort of pops and burbles on the overrun, but they are very much sort of engineered in, so they're not sort of happening for real. They've made it happen. So I prefer sort of real pops and burbles, but it does sound quite nice.
I've reviewed this bike a number of times now. The first time I reviewed it a few years ago, it did take quite a long time to get used to it. So once you do, you realise how good this bike is, because I also reviewed it again in Wales when I lived there for a little while, and through the sort of little villages and what have you, it does ride nicely. So it's good in the slow stuff as well as the fast stuff. So it's a bike that will do everything, literally. And of course you can go on long journeys and cruise with it. You can change the seat if you need to for a passenger. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but it's a phenomenal bike. And as Darcy said at the beginning, if you want the big numbers, the big CC, the big brutish torque, this has got it all. Tree stump pulling torque. It's unbelievable, and there's nothing like it. Now going from front to back, we've got big fat tyres on this. Wide mudguard, but it could do with coming a little bit further down to protect the radiator there. Double discs, as we've said. Alloy wheels. You've got this massive engine with the 3 exhaust pipes, but one of them actually comes out this side, And like Darcy said, we've seen an aftermarket one that just comes 3 into 1 along here to about there. That looks really nice in my opinion. Let us know what you think, but that's something you can change. I'm not so keen on this sort of design. You get that on a lot of naked bikes, and I think it would look nicer with a conventional mudguard that came round, incorporating the number plate and the lights on the back as well. And you've got the single-sided swing arm with a shaft drive. That's really good. And this bike does that sort of little kick to the side when you rev it, which is very characterful. Now the controls on this could be a little bit more luxurious in my opinion, but they're functional. You've got this modern dash now that's been on quite a few Triumphs for some years. It would be much better with an analog or 2 analog gauges. We've always saying that, but it's true. I'm not keen on this thing here. If I was redesigning this bike, I'd put a nice single headlight on the front and do away with this and have it a bit higher up so it doesn't look like a massive insect on steroids. But that's a design that a lot of people like, so it probably goes down quite well.
As I say, the Rocket 3 is definitely a muscle bike, but we recently compared it in the last video to the BMW R18, which is more so a cruiser. But I mean, you could also argue that this is a muscle bike. But in terms of comparing them to cars again, this is like the modern Chevy Camaro, and this is like a 1969 Dodge Charger. It's got that classic feel about it as well. It's not as powerful, it's not as torquey, it's not as fast, but my God, has it got extreme character and beautiful classic looks. So it depends what you look for in a motorcycle, but if you want to see a comparison between these two bikes, then make sure you check out that video as well.
Now, interesting point here that a friend of mine has got Harley Davidson, and he was talking to me the other day saying that he's thinking of selling his Harley Davidson and getting one of these, because the image of Harley Davidson just lately seems to be changing and a lot of people don't like it. We don't have an opinion on that particularly, but it'd be interesting to know what you think. But this is a good alternative because it's a big meaty bike, much like a Harley Davidson, but in a kind of more of a sporty way. We'd be really interested to hear from you in the comments. If you were given a free rein to be the designer of the next version of the Rocket 3R, what would you do differently to what you see in front of us now? Assuming we're keeping the sort of similar engine, all that sort of spec, what would you do? Would you change the back end? Would you do anything different here? Would you change the handlebars, the lights, the tank? What sort of styling would you put into the bike? It'd be very interesting to hear your opinions on that.
So if you want a bike that looks cool, goes like stink, is an extreme showcase of engineering, then this is your bike. It really is a head turner, it's a showstopper, and I think this is a bike that will continue to go down in the history books because it's just unbelievable. So if you like this bike, let us know in the comments below. If you don't like it, let us know as well, and hopefully you've enjoyed this review, and hopefully it's given you an insight into what this bike is like to ride. So make sure you check out the rest of our videos on the videos tab, and we'll see you in the next one.